And we're back on Inside the Ropes, and it's our second guest of the night, and this man is an ECW original. He has done more violent things in a wrestling ring than I think I'll ever do in my life, but he's here with us tonight. He's also in the Barbed Wire City movie. He is the one and only Mr. Axl Rotten. Axl, welcome to Inside the Ropes.
Inside the Ropes, Kenny, it's my pleasure to be here. I want to tell you, you are the first, and I'm going to put you on the spot here, the first wrestling talk show I've ever done in Scotland. So you have the exclusive with the first ever Axl Rotten interview in Scotland.
There you go. You can't get better than that. I just want to kind of talk to you about your career, and I guess to start us off, when you first joined ECW in the 90s, I believe it was 1993.
Correct.
It probably wasn't anywhere near as violent as it would get later on. How did you find ECW initially when you got there? What were your impressions, and how did you initially feel about the turn to making it more violent?
Well, my initial feeling about ECW was it was just another show a month that I could do. That's all it was. It was nothing more to me than what it was, a small independent wrestling promotion that ran one show a month. You know, and as an independent wrestler, you try to fill your calendar with every weekend. You want to work at least 1, 2, 3 times as much as you can, you know, because that's how you're making your money. So I wanted that one show a month to add into my calendar, so I knew that, you know, every 3 weeks I'd have another date. That's all it was to me. It was nothing more than, you know, another independent show. You know, it was nothing more than if I would be going to a show in New York City or, you know, Alabama, and it was just nothing more than another show. ECW's roots came out of Tri-State Wrestling, which was, you know, ran by another gentleman before Todd Gordon, and they really started the whole thing, and people kind of kept with it. They wanted a more hard-hitting style, you know, and to be quite honest with you, though, when I got there, ECW was nothing more than, as I said, another independent promotion. They didn't do anything outrageous. I mean, if you thought, you know, a guy like Jimmy Snuka, Magnificent Morocco, these are the guys we were using at the time, you know, we're going to be going through tables and lighting themselves on fire. That wasn't happening. That was thought of at least for 2 more years, you know. So ECW was nothing more than another independent promotion.
And then obviously, like you say, it would go on to become more violent. Were you happy to embrace it becoming more violent, or were you ever hesitant about that?
Well, here's the thing about that, Kenny, to be honest with you. People don't understand this, and I've said this over and over, so I hate to repeat myself, but this will be the first time it was said in Scotland. So for your listeners there, this will be the first time they're hearing it, unless they've heard it on the World Wide Web somewhere else. Mm-hmm. I got into professional wrestling to be a professional wrestler. My inspirations were Superstar Billy Graham, Dusty Rhodes. You know, that's what made me want to be a wrestler, those 2 guys, you know, when I was a little kid. So, you know, the idea of when the whole thing, and this, people need to understand this, ECW was doing just, you know, regular, more fast-paced, hard-hitting matches up until the feud between myself and Ian. And it was quoted in that hardcore Forever documentary. They called it the Summer of Violence. That's when Paul Heyman came to me and Ian, my ex-partner Ian Rotten, and said, will you guys do a barbed wire baseball bat match? You know, and we said, never done it, but sure. Now, mind you, I'm a wrestler. I've always been a pro wrestler. I still am. I'm an entertainer. It's what I love to do. But when the boss asks you to do something, you either say yes or no. If you say yes, you keep your job. If you say no, you lose your job. Well, we said yes. And then what happened was Ian Rotten and I went out there and did the most outrageous barbed wire baseball bat match that's ever been done in the history of wrestling, because, you know, the fans that had seen that match from promotions in FMW in Japan, the guys never swung the bat at each other. They just rubbed it on themselves, you know. Well, Ian and I didn't we thought that looked stupid. So we were taking full speed swings at each other's arms and backs and legs, and the bat getting stuck in my leg and just sitting there. And I remember vividly to this day when I came back to the dressing room, Terry Funk was like, "You are one crazy son of a bitch. You guys are out of your mind. That was the damnedest, sickest thing I've ever seen in my life. If you ever do it again, I'll personally kick your ass." And that's exactly what happened. And then from then on, it just progressed. And the thing is, Ian and I, whether anyone else wants to take credit for it or not, and I'm not a pisser or moaner, and I'm not going to bitch about who takes credit for what, but we did it. We started it. They know we started it. The fans know we started it. And to anyone else who wants to take credit for it, that's fine. It makes them feel better. But, we've been wrestling long before we were doing the blood and guts stuff. And we were just asked to do it, and we did it. And what I want people to understand is, I don't go out and want to do those type matches. As a matter of fact, these days, I don't want to do those matches. I'd rather just go out and have fun with the fans and wrestle, professional wrestling, what the sport that I love and got into. So, that's the whole violent thing was just because that's what we were asked to do. And more importantly, neither of us were afraid to do it.
Yeah. And I guess, for fans maybe over here in the UK especially, we weren't given much access to ECW, when it was kind of in its prime, I guess. You'd have to find videotapes through tape traders and stuff like that. But I think a lot of people fondly remember you and Balls Mahoney together. Whose idea was it for you and him to team up? And again, what are your kind of favourite memories of that? Because you guys seem to have a real sort of camaraderie together that, goes from then. And even when you watch the Barbed Wire City documentary, you guys still seem like you have a connection.
Well, that the thing is, with he and I, we go way back. We go so far back. We were like Chris Candido, who was one of my best friends. John Rickner, Balls Mahoney, one of my best friends. We go back to being teenagers. We've known each other. Of course, Chris has passed on, but Balls and I have been friends since we were like 17. And the thing is about that era when we were teaming. You can't deny, and Candido even said this, and Tracy Smothers, and so because Balls and Axl are the most over tag team going out there. I mean, and he just wouldn't put the belts on us, because it was like, people chasing us. He put them on the FBI, and then I got sick, and then he put them on Tanaka and Balls, but it wasn't the same as Balls and Axl. That's what people want to see. They still want to see it to this day. I remember when we did our dark match for WWE, we came out at the Continental Airlines Arena, and 18,000 people were chanting, Axl, Balls, Axl. So they knew who we were already, and this was like some 8 years after ECW had folded. The people loved us, and I loved, the fans of ECW, and yourself included. If you're a fan of ECW, man, I loved every one of you guys because, you guys carried us on your backs all those years. We did what we did because we had a personal connection with the fans. Me and Mahoney had a personal connection with the fans. I mean, no one else, to this day, when you watch wrestling, when you throw a punch, you don't hear someone chant, Orton, Ziggler. No, they did Balls, Axl. The fans loved us. I mean, and we didn't look like some cookie-cutter tag team that came out of a factory like everyone else did. Everyone had the same look, same tights, same body, same haircut. They were boring. Balls and I looked like two rough thugs that would go to the bar, drink a couple beers with you, and then go out back in the alley, beat each other up, and then come back in and buy shots for the rest of the night. And then go home and probably have sex with your old lady. That's the kind of guys we were. So that's the kind of fun that we had. It was that kind of realism. People thought they connected to us because we weren't a gimmick. We were just an extension of two crazy, nutty dudes that like to have a great time, and that conveyed to the fans. They saw that.
I guess
And
it's
by the way, to answer your question, it was Chris Candido's idea to put us together.
Oh, okay. I was going to say that I guess you kind of hit the nail on the head there, because they say that in wrestling the best characters are extensions of the people, and I guess with you guys, if that was an extension of you, then that's why it worked, partially because people could see that you were being genuine. You know, it wasn't like a Red Rooster gimmick or anything that you were just given and that you had to pretend. And you would leave ECW in 1999. What led to you leaving ECW? Why did that happen?
I left ECW several times. Like, I strayed away, you know, for a few months in '95 to go back to Memphis to wrestle for Jerry Lawler a few times, just because I just wanted to change. But I mean, by '99 to early 2000, it got pretty bad with, you know, it's been documented that. If people don't know, there's a pretty widespread, rampant drug problem within the wrestling business, you know, and you know, I fell victim to that, and it's that mentality that you're in pain every day, and you have to perform every night. So if you don't perform, someone's going to take your place. So what we did as wrestlers, I think for me personally, you took painkillers so you could work, and you took some other drugs so you could wake up. And I had gotten to the point where I was, you know, a full-fledged train wreck along with a couple other guys, and it was like people were to the point where they thought, you know, hey, we don't know if Axl's going to wake up tomorrow. We don't know if he's going to, you know, when he goes to bed at night in the hotel, we don't know to expect he's going to be breathing the next morning. So, you know, I was really bad off, and I became more of a liability than an asset. And Paul Heyman, a direct quote from him was, you know, this was a direct quote in the newspaper in the Baltimore Sun. He said Axl Rotten had all the talents to take over the wrestling world, but he also had demons. And he said, unfortunately, those demons took him down before his talent could reign supreme. And that was, you know, the case.
And unfortunately, ECW would close in 2001. But in 2005, you ended up appearing for the WWE on Raw as part of the sort of invasion of ECW guys leading into the One Night Stand pay-per-view. How did that come about? And can you tell us about that experience, what it was like going to the WWE and working this, you know, probably their most successful pay-per-view of that year?
Yeah, you know what's hilarious is, you know, again, and it's not funny, but I was still having problems, you know, with drug problems, and here they call me when I'm not ready. We were there not as WWE employees, right? So we didn't care. You know, I was not really in the best shape that I wanted to be in. But here's one thing that I want to tell everyone out there that likes to talk smack about me and say things. I made it in professional wrestling. I didn't sustain a long career, but the people that are listening to this, and especially the people that call themselves wrestlers, and in my opinion, you're not a pro wrestler if you never really wrestled making a living doing it. You're just a guy whose hobby is wrestling. I was a pro wrestler. I paid my bills wrestling. So in my career, I was in the main event segment of Monday Night Raw, the main event segment of SmackDown. I have my own action figure, my own T-shirt. I've been in a video game. So all those guys that like to tell the wrestling world how terrible of a garbage wrestler that I am and all that stuff, when you guys can line your credentials up against mine and show me what you've done that makes you a quote-unquote better worker than me, then you can talk to me. But until then, I don't want to hear it. And so my idea of going into the WWE thing was, hey, I don't care. I'm going in here, and I'm going to do what I do. You know, we were standing in the ring like 4 hours before the show, which I find preposterous, rehearsing with their guys. I've never done this before in my life. I called in the ring. I'm a worker. That's what I do, you know? But these guys had to rehearse segments. And I remember clearly we're standing there in the ring, and it comes to time, and I said, well, who's taking the chair shots from us? You know, and Pat Patterson goes, hey, listen, guys, you can't hit these guys like this is the ECW. This is the WWE. And Vince McMahon sort of said, wow. He goes, bullshit. He goes, that's exactly what I paid these guys for. And he looked right at me and Balls, and he goes, and if Balls Mahoney and Axl Rotten, he goes, God damn it, I love those names. That sounds like wrestlers. Balls Mahoney and Axl Rotten. If they don't take someone's head off, they're fucking answering to me. And I said, Balls, I think we're taking somebody's head off. You know, and that was it. You know, and that's what we and if you could have seen the look in those guys' eyes, I'm talking like Rob Conway and Matt Morgan and Edge, none of those guys wanted to get hit by us. None of them. They were all scared shitless. Because Vince gave the directive right there. He said, if you don't take their fucking head off, you're answering to me. And because this is live television. You have one shot. One shot. That's it. You don't get a do-over. And you're on the number one show on cable in the main event segment. You better do it right.
And you did.
So, yeah, and we kicked ass. And if I recall, when Raw went off the air, we were standing strong, and the whole arena was chanting ECW. So we did it right.
And I'm curious from your perspective as a guy who was in the original ECW, because that weekend you worked the Hardcore Homecoming show, and then you worked the One Night Stand pay-per-view. Did both of those events feel like ECW to you, or did one feel like it more than the other?
Well, neither felt like an ECW event. Nothing we've done since ECW has felt like an ECW event. I mean, Hardcore Homecoming, pseudo ECW, because there was more ECW involvement. I sort of laughed when I got to the Hammerstein Ballroom and saw a paper laying on a table that said ECW Hardcore Homecoming script, and I laughed my ass off because they actually had it written down. Balls and Axl, hit music, pan crowd, wait for reaction, pan back to Balls and Axl, crowd cheers. They have that written down. It's like, wow, this has nothing to do with wrestling. I mean, it's like, it kind of shattered my dream as a kid because I wanted to go to WWF so bad as a kid, now WWE, but when I got there, it was nothing that I expected, and I detested it. And Tommy Dreamer said to me, he goes, Axl, you got to remember one thing. They're not paying you here to have fun. They're paying you here to go to work, so you're going to be miserable. And really, a lot of those guys right now to this day are miserable. When I was younger, wrestling in territories around with Lawler and Tracy Smothers and, guys like Adrian Street and we had fun on the road. We'd go wrestle, we'd go out to the bar that night, nightclub, whatever, back to the hotel, and then go to the town and do it all over again the next day. So that was a great time. But those guys, man, they got to work so close to the vest and work on not hurting each other, and everyone's so concerned with how much time they get on TV and how they look. It's not legitimate wrestling anymore. And Vince has openly said it's sports entertainment. He doesn't even want to call it wrestling.
Yeah. And Axl, just finally, for any fans that want to kind of get in touch with you or keep updated with what's going on, is there anywhere they can find you online?
Yeah, well, it's 2013, Kenny. Where are we at? I mean, it's you can find me on Twitter. It's at Axl Rotten ECW. That's AXLROTTEN ECW, at Axl Rotten ECW. I'm also on Facebook. Pretty simple. Same thing. It's facebook.com/Axl Rotten. You can find me on there. My email address, the Rotten one. That's THEROTTONONE @gmail.com. So, feel free to contact me. I love hearing from the fans. I did a podcast a few months back with Colt Cabana, and I got such an overwhelming response from the community in the UK and people over there, and there seems to be like a groundswell of people that want Axl Rotten to come to the UK and then places over there, but I just can't find a promoter to bring me over. So if you guys are listening to this and you're fans, of ECW and Axl Rotten, and you're running promotions in Scotland or UK and places like that, I'm ready to come over. Hit me on Twitter, find me on Facebook, email me. I mean, there are people out there that have said, when are you coming to the UK? And I'd say, I'd love to come today, but, I can't find a promotion that's going to bring me over.
Well, let's hope that will happen. Axl, thank you so much for your time. It's been a real pleasure, and hopefully speak to you again soon.
Hopefully the people will enjoy the interview. Thanks, man.
Take care.